Not only are we going to be unboxing the new Beretta 1301 Tactical Mod 2, but we're also going to do some first impressions over at the range to answer a few questions. What's so different about the Mod 2 versus the original 1301 Tactical? What if you already own the version 1? Is it worth it to get rid of that one and then trade it in and get the Mod 2? Or are you better off just upgrading your Mod 1 to have the features of the Mod 2? We will have a parts list for everything that we're talking about in today's video. Beretta 1301 Mod 2. Let's rip her open. This is exactly how it came. Obviously, I've taken this out before, but this is how it was boxed up. Comes in a plastic bag, just like so. Now, I forgot to put it back in the plastic bag, but it also comes with a little baggie of accessories, primarily pertaining to right here. So this is a little extension for the buttstock so you can get a longer length of pull. That was in the bag, had the extra screws for that, but I already put the extension on. The other thing that it came with one additional choke and a tool to remove and insert the choke. Aside from that, that's all that was in the box. However, looking at this, you will notice a lot of things that are different about this versus the version 1 1301. So what's different about the Beretta Mod 2 versus the version 1 model? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very wet behind the ears. So this is the first 1301 that I've ever handled or fired before. The first difference is going to be in the handguard. If you look at the original Beretta 1301 Tactical, the handguard was very similar, but this one has one key feature that one doesn't have, which is going to be M-LOK rails on both sides as well as on the bottom. And so because the original version didn't have any attachment points for lights, a lot of people opted to get the Magpul handguard. That way they'd have places to attach things. Now, I will say when I was at SHOT Show, I did get the opportunity to shoot the Langdon Tactical 1301, which has that same Magpul handguard. And I will say this, the texture that's on this OEM handguard, I like it much better than the lack of texture that's on the Magpul handguard. So them adding these attachment points is a huge upgrade because I don't think that many people will actually upgrade their handguards with this now. In fact, this handguard is almost identical to the one that comes on the A300 Patrol. When that came out on the A300 Patrol, a lot of people wanted to take that handguard, swap it over to the 1301. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to do without heavily modifying the handguard because the gas systems are ultimately different between the two guns. The good news here is Beretta actually listened to their customer base and made the appropriate changes. And that is something that I always like to see in any firearms manufacturer. The second upgrade that they did to this one is right here in the loading port with the Pro Lifter system. The Pro Lifter system, essentially, whenever the gun is in the cocked position, the lifter stays in the upright position. That way, whenever you're doing some reloads, whether you want to do speed reloads like this, or maybe you have the gun like this and you're just pushing one round in with your thumb, you don't got to worry about your thumb getting pinched between the receiver and the lifter. That's actually a big deal because I've actually complained about that with other shotguns. The other thing that's new on this shotty is the trigger. So the trigger is now flat instead of curved like the original version, and they're claiming that it's a little bit lighter. On my pull gauge, I got it to pull at about 4 pounds on the nose, maybe just a hair over. I don't know if that's actually lighter than the original version. If you own one and you've tested that, let me know down in the comment section what the original trigger pull weight was. The other update is now they have a 2-piece on the magazine extension tube. This piece here, where my finger's touching, and this piece here are 2 separate pieces, and they're saying that now you'll be able to add little extensions to take it a little bit further out if you so chose. Now, another thing that's new to the 1301 Mod 2 is the introduction of more colors now. So not only can you get black and flat dark earth like we have here, but they also have an OD green version, and they also have a wolf gray version. Additionally, they do have 2 stock options available at the moment. Number 1, we got the synthetic stock that I have right here. They also have one that comes with a pistol grip stock that's from Mesa Tactical. And the stocks, regardless if you get the pistol grip version or the synthetic version, will match the color of the gun. One of the Beretta reps at SHOT Show did tell me that in the near future, probably later this year, they will be coming out with a version of this that comes with the Chisel Manufacturing folding stock. If you haven't seen those stocks, they're pretty awesome. The folding one literally, I think, just got announced about a week ago at SHOT Show. What's cool about it is it's super modular. You got all these different cheek risers and pads, but it also adds a way for you to add a red dot such as an RMR, to the back of the receiver because the stock comes up over it. And the advantage of that is it gets the dot closer to your eye, so you have a wider field of view. The other benefit to that is you can remove this Picatinny portion right here. Say you have a shell carrier on this side, you can actually just grab your round, load it and then hit your bolt release at the same time without catching on the Picatinny portion. Now we'll cover a little bit more about stocks when we start talking about little upgrades that we can do to this, because there are a few that I'm gonna do, but this stock, I like it. But there's one thing about it that I just really dislike, which we'll get to in a second. Similar to the original version, this one comes in the standard 7+1 capacity. However, there is sometimes a limitation depending on what shells you have that won't allow you to get a complete 7 rounds into the tube. And now all that stuff's fine and dandy, but let's get to the meat and the potatoes. How does this thing actually shoot? As of right now, I have about 80-ish rounds through this gun. Big shout out to Firearms Depot for providing all the ammo for this whole video series. Big shout out to those guys. I will have some more info about them over at the parts list if you want to check those guys out. So historically speaking, one of the biggest flaws for most duty or law enforcement style semi-automatic shotguns is they won't usually cycle light loads or birdshot because they're sprung in a way to really cycle the heavy loads, and they want to spring them a little bit heavier to kind of reduce the recoil. So the first loads that I tested on here was some birdshot as well as some target loads. Every single round cycled flawlessly from round number 1 to round number 80. Just to clarify, this is not a review, this is a first impressions. We're still going to keep putting rounds through it as the videos progress in this series, just like we are with the Panzer M4 and the Orthos. After I was pretty satisfied with how the birdshot cycled and the target load cycled, I then moved on to some double-aught buck. Double-aught buck shot tremendously well, no problems with it, it cycled perfectly. I then moved on to slugs. And this was gonna bring me to the recoil impulse. I wanted to kind of talk about this and kind of compare it to the M4 clones because I felt like this was a pretty heavy recoiling gun because this gun is so incredibly light. In fact, in its base configuration, without this extension on the buttstock, this thing comes in at a hair under 7 pounds. I think it's like 6.7 pounds or something like that. With the extension, it's almost 7 pounds on the nose. However, with that being said, the Benelli M4 clone in its stock configuration is 8 pounds, 13 ounces. And to be real with you, you can really feel the difference when you're just handling these. You can feel that there's about a good solid 2 pounds of difference. And you can really feel it when you're shooting double-aught buck. Double-aught buck on this thing almost feels like a kick in the teeth. One of the benefits to this being so lightweight is if you're a law enforcement officer or maybe you're in the military, you can carry this around and it's not as heavy. And what that does, it's gonna allow you to add attachments like flashlights, slings, red dots, maybe even a shell carrier on this side. And when you add all those accessories to it, it will increase the weight. I haven't weighed 8 shells. I have a shell carrier coming in, and we will weigh this once we get all the parts on here that we want and see how that compares to the M4 or the M4 clones. Now, before we get into the weeds on recoil, I kind of live by a credo. I live by the rule that recoil is stupid. And if you can reduce it or eliminate it, I think that you should, given that it doesn't mess with the reliability of the gun. Some people in the comment section or in YouTube videos, they want to act like they're tough because they can handle a lot of recoil. If you ever had to defend your life, the bad guy that you're gonna have to shoot isn't gonna care if you can handle shooting a very heavy load under recoil. The only person that's gonna care is you. It's kind of an ego thing. For me personally, I would rather have less recoil and be able to shoot faster and more accurately. That'll make more sense when we compare it to the Orthos Arms a little bit later. But you can really feel the difference in the way that this thing kicks between this gun and this gun when it comes to double-aught buck. You can feel the difference a little bit when it comes to the slugs, but the slugs actually cycled pretty well. Now, when I say that this thing has pretty decent recoil, the one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have a lot of muzzle rise. I noticed that with my Benelli clone, this one had quite a bit of muzzle rise, whereas the Orthos Arms, because it's ported, hardly had any muzzle rise at all. Also, when I was at the range doing the testing, I was very curious what the recoil impulse between this guy and this guy was, because this one's ported, has all kinds of crazy stuff going on with it. Check this out. And then this is slugs. To this guy's credit, these things are about the same price as the 1301. This thing shoots so fast. I can shoot this the fastest of any shotgun that I've ever shot or owned. Also, interestingly about this, when I do have the slugs in it or the buckshot, I can shoot this thing to the point where my steel target falls completely over. Neither the standard Panzer Arms M4 or the 1301 has allowed me to shoot fast enough to knock over my steel target like this one has. I'm also still not out of ammo, watch. So it took 8 shots, rapid succession, to knock it over. But again, this one's ported. I wonder if Vancomp is gonna do a ported version of the 1301, because if they are, I definitely wanna review it. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see in future videos. So let's talk about the pricing of this a little bit, because pricing has actually changed over the past couple of years. Back in the day, maybe 5 years ago, the 1301 was almost half the price of a Benelli M4. These were about 1,300-ish back in the day, and Benellis were always around 2 grand. Today, however, these on the Mod 2 are about 1,800 if you can find them, and then the version 1 model can be had as little as 1,500. They're still cheaper than the Benelli M4, but they're climbing, and so some people might opt to go with the Benelli M4 just because the price is getting close. However, this thing has a bunch of different options that the Benelli M4 simply doesn't have. The first thing that this has right out the box that the Benelli M4 doesn't have is you have a 7+1 capacity on the magazine tube. Now, from my understanding, the only way you can get that with an actual Benelli M4 is if you're actual law enforcement and you order it through an agency. Otherwise, you're gonna get this little guy that has the cutoff point, so you can only get 5+1 rounds, and then you have to buy the extension separately. This one, not the case. You get a full 7+1 right out the box. The other thing that this guy has that the Benelli M4 or even the Benelli M4 clones doesn't have is you get the extended bolt release right out of the box from the factory. On the Benellis, you have to buy that separately and upgrade it. And if you've looked at aftermarket parts for the Benelli M4, they're not cheap. Another thing that it comes with from the factory is you do get a larger charging handle than you do on a Benelli M4. The other thing that you can't really get with Benelli anymore is the different colors. Used to, you could get the marine finish, which is similar to this one, or you could get black. So the fact that they're offering 4 different color options, and you can get the color, I guess, based on what your favorite color is. I got the FDE because I live in the desert, and I think that blends in a little bit better. But you can kind of get a color to match your environment a lot easier with the Beretta versus Benelli. However, not all is sunshine and rainbows with the 1301 Tactical. There is a couple of things that I want to change about this, and then I want to show you some accessories that I'm going to be attaching to this and some things you should look out for when you're putting accessories on it. So one of the biggest cons that I've found with this so far are the sling attachment points. If we go to the front, we have a QD spot right there. On the other side, you have another QD spot, and on the rear, we have one here that is filled with a rubber plug. You simply pull that plug out and you can use QD. Now, one of the biggest con that I have, and I can't figure this out, is I was gonna put a sling on here. This is one of my favorite slings. Comes from Tier 1 Concealed. I've talked about this in previous videos. I'll also have links for this over at the parts list if you wanna check that out. But I've tried this with multiple sling swivels. See it right here, standard sling swivel. Let me zoom you in. Pop it in, right? It's in there until it just jumps right out. Flip it over. I was like, well, maybe it's the side that it's on. Pop that in. Yanks right out. Now, I don't know what exactly the brands of these sling swivels are. All I know is it's just not getting pressed into here far enough. And if you notice on the outside of here, it's made of plastic/polymer. And what I'm assuming is happening is that polymer might be a little bit oversized. So all you need to do is take you like a flat file or some sandpaper on a file, and you just need to knock that down a little bit. Then these will fit into there a lot nicer. On the back over here, we have our second QD point. There's a little rubber plug that's in there. You're gonna have to pull that out. I don't like this position of the QD swivel, and let me show you why. So as you can see, I don't like the way that that feels when I have it on the sling. It just kind of rolls around. So you have a couple of options. You could either A, upgrade your stock and get something different, or if you wanna be super cheap, I'll have links to this over at the parts list. I actually just ordered it myself. There is a little sling swivel that you can actually put into the side of this that's only about 20 bucks. And all it requires, you drill about like a 1/4 inch hole or something, or a 1/2 inch hole. And then that little piece sits on the side right here. And it's only for hollow stocks, but it is made for the 1301. And then you can put a button right there and it should fit a lot better. Another interesting feature about the standard synthetic stock, this is compatible with Beretta's kickoff recoil reducing system. They have a bunch of different ones. They have complete stocks you can buy, but they also have an insert that goes into here, and I think they're about $200, $250, but it's an internal shock absorber that simply slides right in and it'll help reduce recoil. I might order one of those just to test it out, but if I do, we'll definitely have that in a future video. Now, I am going to put a light on here. The light that I'm going to be using is the HRT AWLS. These come in a couple different sizes. Thing I like about this is it already has the M-LOK attachment on here. What's interesting about that, say I wanted to put it on this side, right? I could put it right there and it can be in the up position. But what if I wanted to put it on the other side? It seems like the problem you'd run into is if you wanted this in the up position on the other side, you wouldn't be able to do so because now the light's gonna be pointing back at you. Well, the good news is this tube is completely modular. So you can simply pop off the head right there, pull the battery out, pop off the tail switch, flip everything around, put the battery in, and now it works on this side. You could do the same thing if you want it in the down position. The reason that I'm gonna be using this light on this shotgun is I wanna put it right here. And then when I grab it, it has this little thing that I'm gonna call a battle nipple. It's an omnidirectional switch, so it doesn't matter what direction you hit it in. You can do quick flicks with this, but you can also push it in and get constant on. And if you don't like the battle nipple, it comes right off. And now you're just down to a clicky tail switch. Kind of cool. I do have ways that you don't have to pay full price for stuff like this. There'll be more info over at the parts list for you. So overall, in my limited experience with the Beretta 1301 Tactical, and given the fact that I'm a little bit wet behind the ears when it comes to semi-auto shotguns, I'm very impressed with how this thing has ran so far. Aside from the recoil impulse feeling heavier with the 1301 versus both of my M4 clones, I'm very impressed with the reliability of this guy. It feels solid right out of the box. And I'm really impressed with all the upgrades that it comes with from the factory. I think it's a great shotgun. Functions perfectly. It does everything that they say it will do. Had 0 malfunctions, and it's dead sexy, and it's cheaper than a Benelli M4. Now, as I stated earlier, this isn't a complete review, but so far, I would totally buy this knowing what I know now. However, I will be making those changes that we talked about a little bit earlier in the video. So make sure you're subscribed so you can see those videos as we move forward in the series. But until next time, I love you. You guys stay sexy.